Howdy, 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 everybody, and welcome to the World Karting Association A-Maxx Racing Esports Series here at Daytona International Speedway. I'm Austin Knight. Join me in the commentary booth is Eric Bernon with Dennis Branch, controlling all these wonderful cameras and graphics on your screens. Eric, what are we going to see today?
Austin, I'll tell you what, we kicked things off last week at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, which ironically is the site for the next two Manufacturers Cup Series races that the WK has on their real-life calendar. And needless to say, it was interesting. With these Skip Barber cars and the iRacing platform, it was all about survival, and that began right in qualifying. In fact, if you made a lap, you were pretty much guaranteed to start up in the top 10. We got a little bit of a different format scheduled for tonight here at Daytona. Originally, we were going to run some heat races. It looks as though, being that practice is going to go a little bit later, we're going to go back to a 15-minute qualifying session, which will give all these drivers a little bit more time to adapt to what they need to lay down a quick lap time. But you can bet all I keep hearing about, Austin, is the draft on the back straightaway and coming to the line. So if you could stay close to the car in front of you, we're going to be in for a very exciting race, and I can't wait to get going.
Indeed, we are. Daytona Oval. It's known for drafting in every single sport it's ever held here. MotoGP, the Daytona 24 hours draft is huge, especially on the banking. And, well, of course, any stock car race, drafting here is key. And it's going to bring us some very close competitive racing and some very interesting approaches into turn one and that back straight bump bus stop chicane.
Yeah, easy for all of us to say, of course. And the big thing that we're talking about here, obviously the world is in a really weird position right now, and this is the avenue that most racers are taking to fuel their competitive edge. And one of the things we were talking about before we went on air, there's a big age difference from some of these racers. I mean, usually on a karting weekend, wherever you may go, whether you travel or whether you race at your local club level track, you have your classes that move up in terms of not only race car, but also in age and career progression. Well, this is the only opportunity for a lot of these drivers, some as young as anywhere from 7 to 10 years old, all the way up to your senior ranking drivers, including the driver who captured the flag in our WK Masters class back in Daytona at the end of December last season, the first official race of the WKA calendar. And they kind of get to go toe-to-toe with one another for the first time. And there is a lot on the line. We've seen pride being the primary objective for many of our racers, but just tonight, the top three drivers, whoever rounds out or finds themselves on a podium spot, will be going home with brake clean for our winner, either a 219 or 35 chain for our second place finisher, and spark plugs for our third place runner. And of course, in just a short minute, we'll be giving away our second Louis P&R Pole Award, and that will be for the fastest driver in qualifying, $25 cash, courtesy of Louis P&R. And that's not where it all ends there, Austin. Also, our top three competitors for each race of this A-Maxx Racing WK Esports Series, presented by Summit Racing Equipment, is also going to get a $25 gift certificate from Summit Racing Equipment. So, more than just pride on the line here, there's a lot of prizes up for grabs, and in just a short bit, we'll tell you about some of the season-ending prizes that are available as well.
Yeah, as practice ends right now, those prizes are going to be a good incentive for everyone to give it their all as qualifying starts right now. 15 minutes of people giving it their all. It's going to be a great one.
And Austin, one of the things that we saw from the qualifying session last week, as we mentioned, we saw a lot of drivers come out of the gate, and it was held at the Charlotte Motor Speedway Oval. And if you got a lap in, chances were you were going to start up front. Well, now, being that this session is going to be 15 minutes in length, you have a couple of chances to lay down a flyer. And if you do overcook, maybe the right-hander that we're watching this competitor navigate their way through now, Ryan Petty, you may have an opportunity to go back to the pit area, get a reprieve, and start over. And it was the qualifying session that helped dictate some of the finishing results in the race. Nick Snell set the quick time in qualifying last week, went on to lead every single lap in the feature event, and captured race number one. And we'll see if he could parlay those results to similar fortunes in just a short bit as qualifying is underway.
Yeah, clean lap here. Everyone's separate from each other, so nobody else is going to be on the track with you. And I was doing a few laps before the race, just trying to get a feel what these guys are doing, and they're all taking their own lines. And a clean track, clean Daytona compared to a crowded Daytona is completely different. You release all of the threat of cars behind you and in front of you with the draft, and it's just you and the car. And this track is so wide in the small Skip Barber car that we are racing here. So plenty of room for improvement, especially with 15 minutes in this qualifying session.
Now, also considering I have not had the opportunity to drive the Skip Barber car on the platform as of yet, perhaps poor journalistic duties on my part, but I've noticed the last 2 weeks that these cars do move around a lot. Obviously, a narrow tire, and many have wondered why are we using the Skip Barber cars for this WK platform? Well, up to this point, there is no kart vehicle available on the iRacing platform yet. I will not rule it out though for future use as this sim continues to evolve with time. But this is, for many racers, the next step. And if not exactly Skip Barber, maybe something similar in terms of a Formula car. But what makes these cars so much fun to drive? And how does that parlay into helping you grow as a racer as a whole?
Well, I like how you mentioned that this being the next step because when I came out of karting, it was my next step. Well, one of the multiple steps that I took to get to USF 2000. These cars so fun to drive. It has so much, not a lot of power, not a lot of downforce, but you can extend it and the car's capabilities a lot. So you're going to see the car sliding a lot. That's the everyone pushing every bit of performance right now as we're watching Quinn Herons just drifting it through the bus stop chicane. You can hear the rear end just sliding along as he's just punishing those tires, which I kind of compare to a Kia Optimum tires that I see on my sister's car because they are just regular road tires.
And obviously now we're starting to see a couple of sector times come in as more drivers are able to get some time on the racetrack, and we've got a little bit of ways to go. Unofficially, it looks as though we're approaching the 3.5 minute mark of this 15-minute qualifying session. As we mentioned, Luis PNR, who has been a supporter of this eSports series with the World Karting Association over the last few weeks. They were established back in the late 1890s. You talk about a place that's been around for a while. It's a community fixture that was originally named DNR Market after the principal stockholders, which was Frank Detomasi and Ernest Ruggieri. The store was renamed P&R back in 1950 when Dedamasi sold his share to Charlie Parigi, and they've been around for quite some time. And they're located in Heron, Illinois, and they are the official pole sponsor of our qualifying sessions throughout the entire A-Maxx Racing WK Esports Series. And it's because of them that some of these racers, which if you're one of our youngins, that $25 prize will take you a long way. So somebody's going to be $25 richer within the next 10 or so minutes.
Yeah, especially in these times and on iRacing, that $25 can get you a lot of things. The next track in the series, if they don't have it already, next car in their rung up in the iRacing calendar, or a new upgrade for your PC if you are looking for that.
As the qualifying session continues to roll on, we now have eyes on Byron Daly, who was the runner-up last week. In fact, was pretty hard on himself. Told me after the race that he thought that he had done all the laps needed. In fact, he was incredibly active on the sim, didn't dedicate all of his time, even though he's got the A-rated road racing license. The night before that he climbed into the Skip Barber car on the sim, he actually ran very well in a stock car. Talladega captured the flag and trophy, sent me a little video on how he was able to parlay some blocking skills that he had learned through all of his years of not only tweaking on these stock cars themselves, but also his own racing ventures. Beaten up at the second place finish, got a chance of redemption here at Daytona, and thus far he is fastest in the qualifying session over Jake Drew, who is currently scored second quickest at the moment.
Yeah, 2/10 lead over the rest of the field. Byron Daly, he's got that setup looking good. Not a lot he can do to set up a Skip Barber, but there are certain things that you can tweak. And when you get those things nailed down perfect, this car becomes a different beast compared to the rest of the field. But still, putting up all pole is one thing. Can he keep it through the race where the draft is going to be a big game changer?
And also, Austin, one of the things we saw once we got to race time at Charlotte last week is that you weren't always safe in terms of running up in the top 10 running order. In fact, Connor Zilish was a driver who won a few races back at Daytona when we had Daytona Kart Week at the end of December last season. He actually was running up in the top five, got involved in an incident while trying to navigate his way around a lap car, and the rest of his race just kind of unraveled from there. So out front is the place to be, but being that we do have so many cars turning laps here, not just in qualifying, but once we get down to race time, navigating your way through that traffic with that all-important draft is going to be key to see who rounds out our podium just a short while from now. As we watch Austin Olds come through NASCAR 3 and 4, currently scored in 5th as this driver is trying to get his second podium in a row. The third-place finisher from Charlotte also trying to improve on the lap time as he is going to come down to the stripe to put another lap on the board, with Daly still showing the quickest with less than 10 minutes to go.
Nick Snell getting so close, but Byron Daly just improving again on his time, 2:12.123, and that is a amazing time. Austin Olds unable to improve on his times. You can start seeing times jumping in, and Austin Olds taking a big spin and a drift going to turn one. Breaking in these cars into that turn one is going to be so tricky. Expect turn one to be very chaotic no matter which lap that we are in, because you have to be so smooth on the brakes and throttle going into there for a quick lap to avoid the car just stepping out on you.
And that's a great point. These drivers are going to be all packed together going into turn one at a speed that they're not really accustomed to. They're not going to be at full song after they take the green flag and approach that first corner the first time through. And then when they come around after they complete lap one, they are going to be at full speed and probably running in as close proximity as they have all week long. That includes some of the hosted practice sessions that some of these drivers have held leading up to this event, the pre-race practice that just took place. And of course, you mentioned in qualifying, there are no competitors to judge your rate of closure or speed to during this qualifying session. So that's going to be a really fun experience, not just for us to watch, but also for some of these racers. And it could take a few guys out of the mix that first corner throughout many different occasions here tonight. As we watch James Overbeck now head up the backside of the course, approaching that bus stop chicane. Overbeck currently scored fourth, and this is a driver who recently moved up a category with the World Karting Association, one of our young competitors in the field with the A-Maxx Racing eSports Series, and he has shown speed over the last two races, now trying to improve on that fourth place spot of the running order. Just got bumped down to fifth by Connor Zilish, but Overbeck will come around here to put another lap in the books, and we'll see if he can improve from what is currently a fifth place running in the qualifying session.
Yeah, big spots here at Daytona. Turn one, like you mentioned, also coming out of the infield section onto the oval. It's kind of bumpy on the exit, so guys going to be struggling with grip coming out of there. So expect some people fighting for that bottom line as James Overbeck jumps into third place, 2 minutes 12.3, and Byron Daly drops down into the 2:11s with Drake Drew as well, as they are the only competitors under 2 minutes 12.
Yeah, it's very, very close runnings for those two. In fact, looks like 700ths of a second, the difference between Daly and Drew. Daly's pretty much been the class of the field since the drop of the green flag in this qualifying session. And Jake Drew's been up there as well. Now looks as though Carmine Caruso is going to be tempted to jump up into that third spot. Last week's winner, Nick Snell, currently sitting in fourth. And James Overbeck, after that impressive lap that he just turned one lap ago, now bumped back to fifth spot with about 5 minutes left to go in this qualifying session. Again, presented by Louis P&R Italian Market, located in Herrin, Illinois.
Yeah, Carmine Caruso jumped into third with a 2 minutes 11.96. They were down the field earlier on. I believe they were just struggling to find a clean lap because they were just putting in some laps during a practice as they jumped into third. As let's take a look at Josh Spur. See, he's coming out onto the oval right now. Now, the best place to be on this oval, the bottom line currently. During the race, if the draft is there, you want to be up onto the top line because it will set you up for the bus stop chicane and taking it in the right racing line. But the bus stop chicane, you can take it onto the inside, take it onto the outside, but going side by side, maybe a bit three wide if you're crazy enough, it's very tricky. So if you're in a pack and somebody takes it three wide or two wide, just back her down, and you might want to wait because karting, it teaches you one thing: race patience. And you can't always send it like some of these guys really want to. And patience is going to be key here at Daytona.
That's a really good point, Austin. Sorry to jump on you there, but one of the things that I'm beginning to think about, especially considering the fact that the best lap time thus far has taken over 2 minutes and 11 seconds, We're in the final 4 minutes of qualifying. This is when pressure starts to get ramped up a little bit, especially for a driver like Josh Spur, who we are following back to the start-finish line here. He was currently scored 14th, now bumped to 15th in the qualifying running order, and we have not seen Spur improve on that lap time while other drivers have. He's now falling further back in the running order, and you see the pressure mounting as he goes in a four-wheel drift through that aforementioned first corner, and time is running out to lay down a flyer and guarantee yourself, at the very least, a top 10 starting position, as Jensen Burnett has just cracked that top 10. We watched that car approach turn number 1, and Burnett is currently slotted in 9th.
Speaking of flyers, Jake Drew takes provisional pole position with a amazing 2 minutes 11.235, 3/10 faster than Byron Daly, who is sitting in his pits.
That is remarkable for Jake Drew after we saw those two run hundredths of a second apart throughout most of the qualifying session and late in the going. It is Drew who has jumped to the top of the charts, with Daly pushed back to second, at least for the moment. We'll have to see if Daly's going to give it a go to try to get back out there and lay down one more lap, but time is running out, and you have to consider how long it would take to get off the pit lane to get back to the start-finish line in time to get one more lap in, with Caruso currently rounding out your top 3.
You have to also take into the matter that these guys are going to be leaving the pit lane on cold tires if they ever do come out. So the tires have to get up to temperature before they have maximum grip, which around a 2-minute lap time, they'll probably be up to temperature, but not maximum temperature. But since we have 2 minutes to go left in this lap, and if you're in the pit lane right now, you're not coming back out unless it's to do just like some practice laps, get a feel for the track. But everyone hasn't done their laps yet, is just sitting in the pit lane and waiting for this race to start with 2 minutes to go. Jensen Burnett sitting in 9th right now, 1.4 seconds off provisional pole. Big old slide through bus stop chicane, and I can tell you, when you slide these cars, it puts a big old smile on your face. Like, you don't feel that much danger in there like if you slide a sports car, but I don't know, something about these cars. It's just so fun.
Something that we watched with Burnett, looked as though he was running a personal best in Sector 2 and 3, and now perhaps Sector 4 as well. May not be a pole-winning effort, but this could move him up in the running order if the lap times happen to prove themselves back to the start-finish line. As we mentioned, he was scored in 9th at the start of this lap, and with now 1 minute left to go in the qualifying session, it's going to be Burnett coming to the checkered flag. So far, according to my timing and scoring, he's going to stay in that 9th spot as Jake Drew continues to hold down the time to beat. And it looks as though he may be $25 richer in the next 40 seconds or so.
Yeah, he cut the grass, got onto the inside grass of the bus stop chicane and invalidated his time. And as he hooks it into the international hairpin, that time's going to be invalidated right there. So he's just going to wait out the last 30 seconds of qualifying in the pit lane, as we have about 2 more drivers still out there on track right now. And I believe they're just getting in some practice times. That'll be Hugh Templeton and Michael Costello.
Costello was a driver who did run up towards the front in our Charlotte round last week. However, he did find some trouble in the early laps, and that bumped him down in the running order, kept himself in the game to have a solid finish as the attrition took its toll. But it looks as though he is not going to come back around, and we are going to make it official. And the second driver to capture the Louis PNR pole position award is going to be Jake Drew over Byron Daly. And as you mentioned, Austin, he laid down a flyer late in the going, and that is what is going to give him the pole shot when they come down for green.
Yeah, here's your starting lineup. Jake Drew takes pole, followed by Byron Daly, Kareem Crusoe, Nick Snell, Connor Zilch, James Overbeck, Ron Miller, Bryce Mersenberger, Jensen Burnett, Adam Maxwell, Ricky Miller, Daniel Stingberby in 12th place. Behind them in 13th, Michael Poultis, Christopher McKeithen, Sarah Bradley, Will Salisbury, Gavin Bailiff, Kerman Christ, Joshua Spur, Austin Oles, Dean DeBowle, Jason Pribble, Hunter Fox, Bane Bennett in 24th place. They're followed by Hugh Templeton, Thomas Anazuata, Cameron Guber, Nicholas Ponieres, Jason Morris, Michael Casello, Caden Van Zyl, Casey Davis, Caleb Gafarar, Scott Watkins, Danny Zvelski, Quinn Adherence in 36th spot, followed by Ryan Petty, Deverly Benau, Zach Collins, Cooper Gal, Jackson Pearsall, Jeff Estes, Ronnie Dallas Jr., Connor Kelly, Eric Graham, Kevin Reed, Jack Bieberman, followed by Matthew Robidox in 48th place. And last on the grid is Kevin Williams, a 49-car grid and a pack race rolling start heading into turn one. I can tell you if you're in the middle of this pack, may the force be with you. It's going to be a crazy blockade run.
Yeah, a blockade run is actually the nice way to put it. And one of the drivers that I was talking to leading up to this event said that, he hopes that all these competitors happen to mind their P's and Q's when it comes to blocking. In fact, he joked, he said, road course blocking is okay, which I'm not sure there's much of a difference between road course blocking and blocking on an oval. I think moving in reaction to is the definition which our officials will be watching for. But turn one, and this point right here, as the cars roll off the back straightaway, this bus stop chicane, is where that draft is going to be most effective. And that is where we may see a driver be tempted to pull off a defensive maneuver. And that is often where trouble begins to arise. But Jake Drew and Byron Daly are going to lead the field through the high-banked portion of NASCAR Daytona turns 3 and 4 and get set to come down for the second green flag ever of the A-Maxx Racing WK eSports Series presented by our friends at Summit Racing Equipment.
Some of these guys taking a more defensive line. If they're starting to the back, they're just going to start off at the back of the field. Just let these guys do their own race. It sounds like we already had some little incident going into the bus stop chicane, as Denver Liebenau is going to be starting this race from the pit lane instead of with the rest of the field. He just wants to avoid that turn one chaos. Maybe been having trouble with it in practice, so I totally understand that. As the Porsche safety car is going to pull off right now, as the revs are rising and the heartbeats are rising too, because we're going green flag racing here at Daytona for the A-Maxx WKA Esports Series.
Jake Drew gets the jump off the pole, now trying to fill the bottom of that second row as Byron Daly's trapped up top, but he's going to send it down into turn number one. Contact further behind, got one car turned sideways. Daly's going to be able to hang in there. He'll have the inside as they approach the right-hander at turn two. He'll slot in a second behind Drew, while Caruso looks for a way around for that runner-up spot.
Drew, Daly, Caruso, Snell, your top four, followed by Connor Zilch. A chaos-packed turn one as cars are just lodged in with each other, and it's pretty much turned into a car park up there.
Meanwhile, we watch the leaders come through the infield portion of this racetrack. Now through the right-hander here, and what makes up the International Horseshoe, with the top five all running in close proximity with one another. If you drop back behind Caruso in third, the Charlotte winner, Nick Snell, right there in fourth in the white car. And then that bright blue machine, Connor Zilish, who has had much success at the Daytona International Speedway in the karting ranks. How about capturing 5 wins in a one-year span, as the WK only visits Daytona once a year? He captured 2 wins back at the end of 2018 and 3 wins to begin his 2019-2020 campaign, but he's under fire from Bryce Mersberger as they hit the banking in 2. Field now coming down the backside of the course, and it looks as though Daly's going to try to jump out to the lead over Caruso, who slots into second. Jake Drew is going to fall back into third, so that draft was very effective for them to make their way up towards the running order. And they were coming around to complete the first lap. Daly, Caruso, Drew, Snell, Overbeck, your top 5 as they will charge back to the line to complete lap number 1. Already about 2 minutes in. Daly, though, is not going to be able to hold off the lead. They're going to fan out 3 wide for the top spot. Polster Drew up to the top. Caruso through the middle. He slots back to the bottom. Double wide for 2 rows deep to the start-finish line. And Drew is going to lead at the line. So we talk about the effects of the draft. There it is. Caruso up the inside. Drew overcooks the corner. He's going to go wide and lose second, maybe third, as on the inside comes Snell. And he'll make the pass as they hit the right-hander in 2.
Yeah, just came around him like a freight train.
Daly now back up the inside. What incredible racing we're seeing amongst these top four. Just 2 laps in the books of this timed event, with now Caruso to second. Trying to chase down Daly. Pole sitter Drew, he got shuffled back to third in the opening lap, but he got back to the lead once they hit the start-finish line. Daly makes the pass back up to the lead, but Caruso's got the preferred line in the Horseshoe. Back to the lead goes Caruso.
Jake Drew jumping ahead of Byron Daly right there, as these guys are wheel to wheel and so close. They're getting the elbows out, and it is a dogfight right now for the lead.
These 4 have been the top runners all throughout practice, all throughout qualifying, and one mistake could take them all out of it. Drew got dipped down to the apron of the racetrack as they came up out of the banking in NASCAR Turn 1, and he's able to squeeze by Caruso for the lead. He'll try to fight back up top, drafting help coming from Daly, while Snell gets the big toe from behind in 4th. Going to fan out now about nearly 3 wide for the race lead as Caruso's trying to run the middle of the road heading up to the bus stop. Daly looks outside. Drew nestles inside. They nearly come together, does Daly and Drew. Caruso's going to hold the lead at the exit of the bus stop chicane, with Snell and Drew side by side for third. Also coming to the mix comes James Overbeck, who rides in 5th. Connor Zilish not that far behind in the 6th spot, while Bryce Mersberger sits 7th. McKeithen riding 8th. Adam Maxwell and Jensen Burnett swapping positions at the base of the top 10 as they run side by side up towards the front straightaway, with Daly getting around Caruso for the lead at the stripe. And so far, compared to what we saw in Charlotte, there are a couple of cars coming out of the pits in front of the leaders. They could be a factor if they get out of the pit exit before the leaders go by. It's going to be really close with more lap traffic up ahead of the front runners. Daly with the lead as they come to 3.
The lap traffic better stay by the side of the road, and they do, but side by side, going into the Horseshoe, Byron Daly takes the lead, followed by Karen Caruso, Jake Drew, Nick Snell, James Overbeck, your top 5.
And there is some more lap traffic up ahead of the leaders as Daly finds himself out in front. Again, trying to better the runner-up position that he had when they came to the checkered flag in Charlotte. A big slide there as Caruso slices his way back to the point, with Drew trying to battle back up top and Daly looking for an avenue to get back to the front. And there's those lap cars, Austin. They may be a factor once they hit the banking. And when they come around to the back straightaway, it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, you see Daly edging it around the outside, just trying to get it around Cameron Caruso, but Caruso had the preferred line, and now we're going to have a front nose to gearbox little draft battle right here, and all those cars on the bottom line, they're going to freight train. They are definitely going to freight train Byron Daly, but he's going to have preferred braking point going into the bus stop chicane as they're all just racing out, about to start fanning out. Look at that Mercedes schemed car of Nick Snell looking down to the inside. There's a lot of smoke heading into the bus stop chicane. They're going to go side by side, and Cameron Caruso gets into a lap car right there, and 1, 2, 3, the leaders get involved. There's wing damage on Nick Snell. Jake Drew has the lead, and Byron Daly, he's avoided most of the damage, but he got so turned around in there. Let's get another replay of there. Daly round the outside. Car ahead of him is a lapped car. He got into the grass. He was just going slow, and Cameron Caruso just got caught up in the gearbox of that lapped car, and nowhere to go, and more carnage for them as they get rear-ended, and that car is torn up to a unrecognizable level, and the front pack is separated. Jake Drew leading by 5/10, followed by Bryce Mersberger and Connor Zilch, your top 3.
I'll tell you what, we talked about it leading up to the race. Getting around the lap traffic could be a big factor in who walks away with the trophy and the title as the winner here at Daytona in race number 2 of the A-Maxx Racing WK eSports Series presented by Summit Racing Equipment. And we saw it come to a head there, and that did shuffle the running order immensely. Jake Drew, the leader, by the healthiest of margins that we've seen so far all race long, with Bryce Mersberger navigating his way around the carnage. They you see him here coming through the International Horseshoe, doing all that is possible to try to reel in Drew, trying to get around another lap car, I should say, at the back of the pack. And Connor Zilish also was able to avoid trouble. He's now up to third, looking to the inside of the lap car. There was nearly contact there. We see the lap car run wide, and that's going to allow Overbeck an opportunity to get a big run back to the banking, and it'll go to the inside of Zilish for third.
James Overbeck just got right onto the inside of Connor Zilch as Zilch is trying to go onto the inside. We're going 3 wide here on the banking in these tiny skip barbers as they're going side by side, racing for third place in that last position on the podium, and they're going to race it into the bus stop chicane. But James Overbeck, he saw what happened earlier. He's just going to let that position go and get him on the back straight and the NASCAR 2, as I like to call it. And that's a big corner cut for Connor Zilch. He might have to serve a slowdown penalty for that. And James Overbeck, I'm noticing this right now. He has some small damage on his front left wing.
Yeah, actually, as you mentioned it, Austin, just taking a look at that front wing on Overbeck's car, it does look like there might be a little bit of damage there. And Overbeck's trying to better what was a 4th place finish last week. Just missed out on the podium by 1 spot in what was a fantastic duel to the checkered flag with Austin Olds. As we try to look there a little bit closer, we drop further back here to Jensen Burnett, who's trying to take the outside lane around Christopher McKeithen, and they're going to approach the backside of Nick Snell, who also may have gotten some damage in that crash contact.
Nick Snell slowed up a lot, and Jensen Burnett got sent flying into hyperspace right there, hopping over a few cones, and he's out of this race.
Boy, oh boy, more lap traffic playing a factor. And also, you mentioned earlier, Austin, it looked as though there might have been some damage on Nick Snell's car, maybe taking a conservative approach into the first corner. And I don't think Burnett was planning on him getting on the binders that hard at that point on the racetrack. And he went up and over the top of that car as we continue to watch the battles rage throughout the field. Dropping back here to Thomas Annunziata, who's trying to pick up a few spots, see if he can make his way on up towards the top 10. As so far, nothing appears to be stopping the efforts of Jake Drew, who rides up towards the front of the field, continuing to lead, at least for the moment.
Yeah, Thomas Annunziata, he has wing damage as well as he's battling with Jack Bierman right there in the 220 as Jack goes very wide as Byron Daly, he's beginning his climb back up the field after that incident at the bus stop chicane. He got sent down all the way to 16th place. But his car is looking fairly fresh compared to Thomas Annunziata's.
Yeah, you talk about a driver who may be eligible for the Hard Luck Award of the day. Let's talk about that of Byron Daly as he tries to set up Annunziata for a pass here on the outside of the banking in turns 1 and 2, or NASCAR turns 1 and 2, I should say. And as you mentioned, you know, not really any of his doing, just the leader in front of him got into the back of a lap car. Daly had nowhere to go. That car may have some damage, judging by the way that he has plummeted down the running order. Now trying to get around Annunziata. Did make the pass before they got to the bus stop to take over 14th. And we'll move up a little bit further ahead.
He's missing the very tip of his car. That rear wing looks like he just got rear-ended because it's pointed, well, 20 degrees more than it really should be. As there is a slower laps car as well. That's the number 8 of Carmen Caruso. He's missing the front nose of their car as well.
Survival may be a term in which we talk about throughout the rest of this race. It appears as if you're capable of navigating your way around the lap traffic without sustaining any sort of damage or being swept up in an incident. You may walk out of this race with a pretty solid finish as this series continues on to Road America next week, which will be race number 3 of the 5 scheduled races that make up this championship. And we've seen so much happen in such a short amount of time, now 11 minutes into this timed event. And we've seen a number of front runners, including that of Caruso, who's doing all possible to try to climb back up into the running order after he got turned while leading. And this is all going on still behind Jake Drew, who is nursing a pretty healthy advantage at the front over Bryce Mersberger and new third-place runner Christopher McKeithen.
Yeah, car damage is a big thing here. You're seeing a car with no nose but perfect wings. He's going to have the downforce, but the nose is going to act like a parachute in the top speed, and it's just going to slow him down. So he's going to be at a massive disadvantage here At a smaller track like Weimar Park, it's going to not really hurt him that much since there's not a straight, but at Daytona, you are a different class of car. Skip Barber, normally GT1. Skip Barber without the nose, you're a GT4.
Pretty good example, especially when we were talking about leading up to this event, the effects of the draft and the super speedway style racing we will see approaching some portions of this sports car layout at the Daytona International Speedway. And that battling and shuffling for position continues on at the bottom portion of the top 10. We
Ooh,
have
this
eyes
could be
now on Hunter
sketchy.
Fox. Good catch there, Austin. Good catch by the driver as well. Hunter Fox, and just behind him, John Morris, also sliding their way in a four-wheel drift to that chicane. It's going to be Morris holding down 7th. Fox was the car that got out of shape going into the corner, and he's still trying to pull up on the back rear wing of that 7th-place running machine of Jason Morris, and they're side by side off 4.
Yeah, Hunter Fox is holding that inside line heading into the bus stop chicane. And I just don't think Morris noticed that he was still there and going to hold that line going into the braking zone. And once he realized that, he locked them all up. And thankfully, they did not collide with each other. But now Jason Morris sitting in 7th place, followed by Hunter Fox. And Bane Bennett saw that and done. Whoa, who was that?
I was just happening to look at that as well. I almost jumped out of my chair here. Wow. Somebody got turned around backwards and nearly pulled right out in front of these two as they continue that battle for the 7th spot, and closing up just behind Bane Bennett.
Jason Morris sent it in to Hunter Fox, turned him around, and Hunter Fox got collected by Bane Bennett. No, not Bane Bennett, Carmen Gruber. And that was a 3-car incident sent in by Jason Morris. Morris going into the Horseshoe, just last late break, there's nowhere to go, just slammed into him. The Red Bull car, number 3 of Hunter Fox, just plowed straight into them.
So racing for about the 7th spot gone bad, and don't look now, but Byron Daly, the driver who started 2nd, got shuffled back as far as about 15th in the running order, back up into the top 10. If the carnage continues and he can continue to keep that race car clean, maybe he will sneak out a solid finish after this one is all said and done as well. As you start to look at some of the point standings as things shake out, Nick Snell, last week's winner, currently scored in 6th spot, as we have a great battle engaging here with Thomas Annunziata currently leading this parade through NASCAR Turn 2. Just behind is Michael Politis and Carmine Caruso, who led this race in the opening laps, taking you back to the 12th spot as this 3-car fight tightens up to the bus stop.
Yeah, Thomas Annunziata got a great run heading onto the oval. And Michael Politis, he has the cleanest car of all 3 of these guys, but he's just been taking that top line, driving his own race, driving a safe race, and that's how he's keeping his car clean, because clean cars win races, and I think he's sensing something in the force that something big might happen next.
Continuing to watch this field as they will come back to the line. Most of these drivers completing their 7th lap of competition as we are about halfway through the time portion of this race here at the Daytona International Speedway. And we mentioned Austin very briefly as we watch these drivers send it off into that first quarter again. Oh, more contact. Not sure what car that might have been.
That was the lap car of Arns. That was the lap car of Arns getting barrel rolled off right there. Quinn Arms, he kept the outside line, left the door open, and that is a scary thing to see when you see a car get flipped over like that. Thankfully on iRacing, you don't actually get hurt.
That is, of course, the upside to these virtual competitions we have been hosting here, especially with the WK over the last 2 weeks. And here's that battle again at the base of the top 10 with Thomas Annunziata holding that 10th spot. Jack Bierman wants to get by to crack the top 10. These two seemingly have been locked together throughout most of this race, and they're trying to close up on Bane Bennett, Jason Morris, and Byron Daly. A few drivers who've had some trouble, may not have 100% race cars underneath them for the duration of this event. And that could turn into a fight for not just this 10th position, but maybe 8th and 9th as well if they could mind their P's and Q's in the draft here and possibly close back up. But thus far, they continue to ride. Now looking to the outside comes Bierman on Annunziata. They're going to go side by side again, heading up for the backstretch. But look at the big run coming here by Politis. He's going to try to go to the middle.
This could get very crazy as they're coming up into the braking zone right now. Who's going to be the last late breakers? It looks like Politis got stamped hard on the brakes, almost gets collected by Bierman as Annunziata held that inside line and just sent it into there. And wow, Michael Politis saved that so hard. And as well, just big congrats to Bierman for avoiding an incident right there. Let's look at Jason Morris. His car is looking all right. I can't really tell if there's any damage. Might be some side pod scratching on there in his livery as he's following Bane Bennett right now as they jump up into 9th and 8th place.
Yeah, Morris, of course, was involved in that incident while racing for about the 7th position on track. Now doing all that is possible to reel in Bane Bennett. We drop back again now to Annunziata, who continues to hold down 10th, with Politis right there just behind, and Bierman in the 12th spot. One of the things, Austin, we've been mentioning throughout the night, we told you that right now Jake Drew is trying to hold on for the lead as we got to move here to the inside of Annunziata. These two are going to be locked together all the way down to the checkered flag. Politis has the advantage here, and Annunziata trying to fight back on the outside. And while they continue to battle, Drew trying to claim this first place prize. If he can hold on to the checkered flag of some brake clean, we also got a chain that will go to the second place winner and some spark plugs as well for third. But let's talk about the overall season-ending championship prizes. How about an arrive and drive package for Daytona Kart Week 2020? And that will be a chassis and support without a motor, and that is provided by A-Maxx Racing and Intrepid USA, plus an entry courtesy of the WK and $50 cash. So we're taking the results from this eSports series and we're parlaying that into real-life racing experience at Daytona for the biggest kart race of the year. And for more information and for a full schedule and details, you can visit worldkarting.com.
Yeah, and Jake Drew is going to be getting a lot of points out of today. Almost 5 seconds ahead of Bryce Mersberger. He got very lucky that Bryce was held up just a little bit, and Jake is just he's getting that draft from lapped cars, and it's just sailing him ahead as another 3 wide into the bus stop, and around goes Politis as he collects Berman as Annunziata got very loose, and Berman has lost his rear wing.
Yeah, it looked as though Berman was going to be able to get away with that one, but at the very end, they made contact again, and we saw the rear wing pop off that car. And again, Politis up through the middle, looked as though he might have had the pass made on Annunziata, overcooked the corner. Not sure if there was contact there or not, and it looked as though that Bierman went wide to try to avoid the spinning car, but it was enough contact as they rejoined the bus stop for that rear wing to pop off, and that is definitely going to hinder the efforts of Bierman for the remainder of this race.
I see Scott Watkins getting right behind Petty right there. You can see what happens when a car has no wing. It's not going to have that much downforce, but in a straight line, it's going to be pretty difficult to pass it because it's not kicking off that much draft as they just sail straight past Gal that was. But Petty onto the inside. Watch his car squirm under braking. As you can see, the loss of rear downforce. It's not that much downforce, but these rear wings, they do give some. And that car is going to be very unstable in the braking zone. So he's already struggling with the lack of grip. And, dips into the grass right there. But he's managed to keep it going straight. Experience in a kart is very helpful into saving a car under braking and going out through there. As Watkins, very ambitious, heading into the inside braking zone. But Petty still remains ahead of him.
And this battle for position is just outside of the top 10, it looks like.
That was a big old nudge by Petty onto Scott Watkins, but Watkins swings around the outside of him, says, "Thank you for the place. Please don't touch me again." He already has damage, as you can see, on his rear wing and front nose.
These drivers definitely getting a bit of a workout as they continue to work their way around this racetrack as we see the sliding continuing on. And here's a battle for position. It is Michael Politis, after we saw him involved in the skirmish with Thomas Annunziata, trying to fend off the third-place finisher last week in Austin Olds, as Olds is going to rocket his way through on the outside, setting up for the bus stop chicane once again. This is one spot shy of the top 10. Olds has the spot for now trying to open up a couple of car length advantage, but Politis is going to close back up, and he will now have the advantage of the draft as they come through NASCAR 3 and 4 and back to the line to complete what will be their 10th lap of competition.
Now, Austin Olds is riding on that yellow line. He has front wing damage, and Politis just sitting there in the draft and just riding on that gearbox as they enter 2 laps to go here at Daytona for the World Karting Association A-Maxx eSports Series. And it's going to be a very crazy last 2 laps, especially for these guys just clinging on and battling out in the midfield. But for the one driver that it's not scared for right now, Jake Drew, who is up 6.2 seconds ahead of Bryce Mersberger. He's broken the draft. He's all by himself, and he is storming away.
One of the items that we talked about leading up to this event off air was the difference in terms of racing experience. And if you're familiar with that of kart racing, you definitely know the name of Jake Drew. Both he and his family heavily invested in the sport, and his racing resume is there to back all that up. He not only proved it here this weekend, he's proven it out on the real race course as well, but this time throwing his name into the hat. But Austin, we got to watch because there is some more lap traffic up ahead, and they have been dream spoilers many times tonight. Not saying that any of the drivers up ahead of Jake Drew are destined to do the same, but with such a healthy margin over the second-place runner in Bryce Mersberger, it'll be interesting to watch how Jake Drew navigates this final lap and a quarter, as he will be coming up to what looks like the white flag.
Yeah, coming out of NASCAR 4 and heading into the Triable, he's approaching Casella, who is 1.5 seconds ahead of him. But Mersberger has damage. Jake Drew does not. He can take this entire lap just very relaxed because it's white flag in the air for Jake Drew. And he's going to be very pleased with himself, but he's got to survive one more lap to take the win here at Daytona.
When we kick this race off, coming down for the green flag, Drew was in fact the pole sitter, but as the opening lap unfolded, he got kicked back to third. Used the ability of the draft coming through NASCAR turn number 4 to take the lead on the outside back to the start-finish line. Got shuffled back a little bit further in the running order, and honestly, that may have been the best thing to happen to him. After we saw drivers like Caruso and Daly struggle with lap traffic and get tangled up in an incident in the bus stop chicane early in the going, it was Drew who was able to escape unscathed. He's now going to try to allow that misfortune to continue on to this final half lap and see if he could claim what will be the second ever event held for the A-Maxx Racing WK eSports Series presented by Summit Racing Equipment. Not just a brake clean on the line, not just the championship points on the line, but also a lot of pride while many of these racers have been grounded throughout the last few weeks. And for Jake Drew, he's coming up to the final few corners before he can celebrate a win here at Daytona.
Yeah, he's riding on the oval right now. This is the part where he kind of relaxed a bit, but come out to the most scary part of the track as for the most action part of the track. And he's behind a lap traffic, and you can see what he's doing. He's lifting off right now. He knows how far he's ahead. He doesn't want to risk a single thing. He's playing it safe. He's playing it smart because he has no idea what Casella would do. He navigates through the bus stop, and now it's pedal to the metal through 3 and 4 and down into the Triable as it's smooth sailing for Jake Drew. He can see the finish line in his eyes right now, and this is when you start getting a little bit very excited. The emotion starts going through you because he knows he has won here at Daytona International Speedway.
Jake Drew is going to come to the line and officially claim the second checkered flag of the WK Esports Series presented by Summit Racing Equipment. Round 2 at Daytona goes to Jake Drew. We drop back now for a battle for 5th. Byron Daly, who rolled off the grid in 2nd, was involved in more than one incident, trying to get up to the top 5 to the outside of Rick Miller with a lap car ahead, charging to the finish line.
Daly is blocking the inside car, and Daly contacts the inside car, and Daly's going to get contacted, and Miller is going to take 5th place ahead of Daly. If Daly didn't hit that car, he would have stayed up there in 5th, but Byron Daly put down a 2-minute and 10 lap time, fastest lap of the race at the end of the race, and there's more side-by-side battling between Reed and between Overbeck and Maxwell right now for the battle in 16th place. James Overbeck, both these cars heavily damaged right now as they're heading down into the bus stop chicane. Who's going to be last late breakers is going to be sent by Maxwell. That car is very unstable as you can see it lunge forward right there, drifting along the bus stop chicane. It's going to be held to the metal for these guys and a hard draft battle, but Overbeck's got a monster lead ahead of Maxwell, who is dropping back farther and farther, and James Overbeck defended that position very well. Another drag race as well. Jason Triable and Burnett battling out for 18th.
It also looks like we see Sarah Bradley in the mix as well as these drivers continue to charge to the checkered flag. This back for just outside of about the 15th position or so as Triable looks as though he's got the edge this time over Bradley. And you can give that position at the checkers to that of Triable over Bradley. But again, it is Jake Drew the winner by about 5 3/4 seconds over that of Bryce Mersberger and Christopher McKeithen, who was the first car to hit the track in qualifying last week, got involved in a crash, started way back in the pack, didn't start towards the front here, plus 11 in the final running order, and McKeithen will be the driver who rounds out our podium here today at Daytona.
What a insane race we witnessed here today. A massive draft battle in the first half of the race, then followed by a massive recovery drive for most of the drivers who got caught up in that leading incident. But it was action-packed until the very end throughout this entire 49-car grid.
I understand we may try to see if it is in fact possible to talk to Jake Drew before we jump off air. We'll see if the powers that be can make that happen. But before we turn it over to that potential to speak with our winner, let's outline again what some of these drivers are going to be going home with and the people who made that possible. Drew's got himself some new brake clean. We got a 219 and 35 chain going on to Bryce Mersberger, whichever would suit his kart and racing style, and a set of spark plugs going to our third place finisher and Christopher McKeithen. All 3 drivers going to be able to go home with $25 in gift certificate credit from Summit Racing Equipment. And Jake Drew also the winner of the $25 bonus from Louis P&R after winning the pole in the qualifying session earlier. All these drivers, as we mentioned, vying for the season-ending championship prizes that are available as well. We mentioned the Arrive and Drive for Daytona Kart Week 2020 that will take place at the end of this season. First race of the 2021 WK Manufacturers Cup Series season, and that is provided by A-Maxx Racing and Intrepid USA. They'll also have an entry for the event paid for by the WK and $50 cash to go along with it as well. Driver finishes second in the standings will get a 2020 WK Daytona Kart Week entry from the World Karting Association and $30 cash. And the third place driver in championship points after we conclude our 5th race in just a few weeks' time will get 1 set of Bridgestone tires provided by Graham Products and $20 cash as well. And thank you to all of our sponsors, including A-Maxx Racing, Summit Racing Equipment, Fast Kart Supply, Rev Branding, and Louis P&R Italian Market and Deli for making this all possible.
Yeah, as we start to wind down this broadcast, let's take a look at the finishing results. Taking the win is Jake Drew, followed by Bryce Mersberger, Christopher McKeithen, Connor Zilch, Ricky Miller, Byron Daly, who recovered all the way back up to 6th place, which is impressive after getting pretty much wrecked out of the race. I have to applaud Brian on that performance. He's followed by Jason Morris, Thomas Annunziata, Nick Snell, Carmen Carso, Austin Olds, Michael Poultis, Jack Bierman, Kevin Reed, James Overbeck, Adam Maxwell, Jason Peerbell, Sarah Bradley in 18th place. They're followed by Jason Burnett, Hugh Templeton, Kaden Van Zyl, Will Salisbury, Scott Watkins, Cameron Christ, Michael Costello, Bane Bennett, Cameron Gruber, Danny Dazelski in 28th. They're followed by Jackson Pearsall, Cooper Gall, Ryan Petty, Devin Liebenow, Daniel Stingerberry, Ron Miller, Dean Dibal, Jeff Estes, Matthew Roybdox, Hunter Fox in 38th. Casey Davis, Quinn Arns, Josh Spur, Gavin Bailiff, Connor Kelly, Ronnie Downless Jr., Caleb Gafarar, Nicky Palnieris, Zach Collins, and Eric Graham in 48th, with Kevin Williams unable to even finish one lap of the race with Eric Graham, who were both caught up in a opening lap incident. And that is your result for the World Karting Association's A-Maxx Racing Esport Series.
And so much to look forward to as well, as next Monday, May 11th, will be race number 3 of this eSports Series calendar, and it will be at Road America, a track in which the Manufacturers Cup competed in last season. We also are going to have our 4th race at the Sebring International Raceway on May 18th, and we're going to wrap things up on Memorial Day at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for race number 5 on the road course there. And that is where we will crown our champion for the first ever, and we're also going to dub it pretty much the winter edition of the A-Maxx Racing WK Esports Series presented by Summit Racing Equipment, as there may be more of these to come, well, even after we get ourselves back to the racetrack. And speaking of, for the moment, for now, and we expect everything to continue down this path, our next WK karting event is the World Karting Association Karting Challenge with the Manufacturers Cup at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. The track went all in. They rebuilt the purpose-built karting facility that used to be at the racing venue many years ago. They broke ground on construction midway through last year. It is now complete. They are ready to roll. We did have to move the date back a little bit due to everything that's been going on, but we are scheduled to kick that off June 26th through 28th. For registration, more information, details, and a full timeline, or any questions you may have about being involved in the wonderful world that is that of karting, please visit worldkarting.com.
Yeah, World Karting, one of the best resources. Anyone getting into motorsports and wanting to move up the ladders is out there for everyone. And I wouldn't be where I'm at without y'all, actually. So it is a big honor to be commentating this series as well, and I can't wait for the next round at Road America, which is going to be, I would say, about 5 times more exciting than this race.
Absolutely, just an unbelievable event that we just had here at Daytona. And Austin, all the things that we talked about leading up to the green flag, turn 1, the bus stop, the draft, survival, all played a pivotal role in how the finishing order came down when they completed their 12 laps and came to the checkered flag, with Jake Drew being awarded the winner.
Yeah, we were waiting on a few of the drivers headed to the interview area, but none of them appeared to be in a talking mood. So unfortunately, we're not going to be having any interviews with the drivers after this, and we're going to have to wrap it all up. So any closing words, Eric?
Well, I will tell you, number one, it was a pleasure to work with not only Marco last week, not only you as well this week, but everybody who's been able to make this possible at Apex Racing. Again, special thanks goes out to everybody at the World Karting Association, from Kevin Williams, the president, who has been spearheading a lot of this, along with Megan Olds, who did a lot of the legwork to round up drivers and also its participants. All of our incredible sponsors, Eric Graham, who's been serving as our official over the last 2 races to help make sure that everybody is cooperating and racing respectfully through this virtual world and venture. And I can't wait to see what next week has in store when we get to Road America. I mean, you want to talk about a racetrack that is going to promote top talent to the top of the running order quickly. That is the track that will make it happen. And we'll be back here next Monday to see how it all pans out.